This is my video, very first video. I'm calling it Man versus Poa. And I've had a Poa problem for quite a few years now. I really didn't realize until I had it maybe like a year ago of what it was and how much it was taking over my grass. What I'd like to do in this video is just kind of tell you my process. I've considered completely putting a Roundup all over the grass and just starting brand new, but I know there's years and years of Poa seeds still down in the soil, so it's still going to come up, and probably only 30 to 40% of my yard actually has it. And so I'm gonna try to do an organic process, which I prefer to do organic gardening if I can. And I'm gonna try to manually use my dethatcher to take up as much as I can. This is a mixture of Kentucky bluegrass and even some ryegrass and even some fescue. What I'm going to try to do this year is overseed with some tall fescue after I manually dethatch this as much as I can. I may end up spraying some spots with the Roundup if I have to, if it's just too entangled with the existing grass. But I mean, this Poa has got such a loose root system that you can pretty much just pull it straight out of the ground. So I'm hoping that my dethatcher pulls a lot of that out of the ground. If you want to see kind of what the manual rake does, because Poa's roots are so shallow, it pretty much comes up and leaves the other Kentucky bluegrass and ryegrass and fescue that was already in there. But this is pretty much all Poa right here. You can see it's just ripping out easy because those roots are so thin. It did rain a little bit last night, so the soil's a little bit soft, so I think I may break out the dethatcher here now, and let's just see how much of the Poa we can get out. But I mean, the root systems are so shallow on these that it kind of just pops all right out. So this is how much Poa and other thatch that I pulled out of my backyard here. This dark stuff here was it, and it's heavy. I'm kind of waiting for it to evaporate a little bit, then we'll take it to the dump. Alright, here is the aftermath of my dethatching process, and overall I think it did really good. By no means do I think all of the Poa is out, but I got quite a bit of it out. You can see this is where I kind of thought the bulk of it is in the middle of my yard, where it's just basically down to bare dirt right now. But I'm very happy that I didn't put Roundup on everything, because I would have had to basically till all that dead grass up and take it away anyway. So the Poa was probably about 30 or 40% of my entire yard, and I'm gonna try to use some turf type tall fescue that I got from GCI, and I do watch his videos, and I know he's out east and in a much different climate than mine, but I actually looked at the seed blend that he uses, and they're 3 different cultivars from Oregon, which is just a few hours from here. And so I figured that if it can grow there, it should be good out here. Okay, it's time. I'm so excited. I have been counting the days until I can put this seed down, looking at weather patterns and measuring soil temperatures. It is the 2nd week in May now. We're gonna have some nice temperatures, and this is actually what my grass looks like now. It's actually been a little sassy. I think it heard me in my earlier videos saying that I was gonna kill off most of it, and it doesn't want to die yet, but this was an area that I actually sodded last year, and it looks phenomenal. Still very glad that I didn't nuke all this stuff, because it would have been a pain in the butt. Obviously, I still have a whole lot of dead spots here. This is the barren area, but what I'm gonna do next is get a yard of compost. I'm gonna spread it down on this and kind of work it in and level the spots out a little bit, because when I pulled a lot of this Poa out, it just kind of made kind of chunks, divots in there. Okay, so I got my load of compost here. This is 1 yard. I asked the guy to give me a heavy yard, so it looks nice and full. It is kind of late in the day here though, and it's gonna get up to 80 here today, so I probably won't do this until later this evening or tomorrow morning, just because it has so much nitrogen in it that it will burn the lawn unless you spread it in really quick. I think it's mainly vegetable matter and manure and some bark mixed together, 3 different things. And then my other weapons for this battle, of course, are the grass seed. This is the turf type tall fescue that I'm going to use. I'm going to use some peat moss after I get the seed on the ground, and I'm going to cover it with a little layer of that just to keep the moisture in. I am going to use some starter fertilizer, 22, 23, 4, just to get a quick germination rate on that. And then I bought this new spreader to spread the grass seed and the fertilizer. This is a Scott's Elite spreader. I've used this Scott Speedy Green 1000 for, I don't know, 15 years, and I figured it's time to upgrade. This one doesn't have edge guard, and so the fertilizer and the seed kind of spray everywhere. This is the different size and wheel between the two, so it's going to have a nice bigger wheelbase. And I am going to do a unpacking and a review on this one. If you guys want to see that, I'll link it in the description. Sorry, I did forget to mention my roller for the compost and the peat moss that I'm going to use, which is probably the most time saving and manual labor saving tool. Instead of throwing it on with your bare hands or shovel, you just fill this little box full of whatever you want, slide this shut, and then you roll it all over your grass. And what's nice is it keeps any pieces that are bigger than this opening inside there, so it's just going to kind of get that fine layer of compost and peat moss on your yard. So this is a huge piece of equipment in my battle as well. So I'm about halfway through the process of putting down this compost, and maybe 2/3 the way, and I just wanted to show a couple tips and just how things are looking. There's going to be a nice dark layer I've done up to here and everything that way. I did unfortunately pick like the hottest day of the year. I think it's going to be 84 here today to do this. So one thing you need to do is, as soon as you roll this on, you need to take your hose and kind of spray it down in there and get it compacted. You don't want it sitting on these leaves of the grass, the blades of the grass. I've left a pile on before for like 15 minutes and there's so much nitrogen in it that it burned it. So spray as much as you can down in there. I mean, it sprays down really easy, and if there's any piles, you kind of want to rake those up. Ideally you want to do this on a 65-degree day, but this is kind of the roller that I'm using. All I do is I get a wheelbarrow, dump it in there, and roll it on. And I can actually cover quite a bit of footage with just one barrel. All this is probably only taken me like an hour and a half. So, and then with anything left over, I usually just lay out a tarp, and these are the chunks that did not go through the sifter, and I'll just use those to spread around my mulch in my yard. But I will show you here just one pass of how I do it and water it in. Alright, so this is how much grass seed I'm going to put down. It is 18 pounds of the GCI turf type blend, and I kind of just came up with that amount because I have about 2,500 square feet back there. A lot of it's bare, some of it isn't. It said on the instructions to do 10 pounds for bare ground, and then probably like 5 pounds for non-bare ground. So this is going to come out to be about 7 pounds per square footage. Okay guys, this is my final seeding and covering with peat moss project. I hand spread this peat moss and it went down really easily. I mean, if you use some nice dry peat moss, it almost is like sifting flour. It's going down in there. So any sort of exposed hole with seed, I try to get it in. And I set up this funny little barrier here that I'm trying to think my dogs will not go across, but they see so many squirrels and birds that it's probably not going to be realistic. So this whole project probably cost me less than 300 bucks. The seed was the most expensive, $130, but I still have a bunch of leftover seed if I want to do it in fall or even save it for next year. We're starting to get some nice hot weather, and this stuff is really picking up. It's actually supposed to get into the 90s here tomorrow and the next day, which I'm gonna have to keep up on the watering, but this stuff is really starting to pick up. All right, so here's my grass. Probably about 5 days after we last checked in. We've had some really high temperatures. We got into the mid 90s, so it's just kind of been weird going from 70s directly to 90s, but it definitely enjoyed this warmer temperature. Sorry, I haven't trimmed around some of these areas, and The hardest part again has just been kind of trying to mow around everything and not run over the new seed. But you can see everything is filling in nice and full. Okay, this is the second week in June 16th exactly. It's been a month since I put the seed down, and this is what my yard's looking like now. If you have followed me this whole way, I almost completely nuked this entire yard and started anew, and I'm very happy that I've been patient with it. I was thinking about putting a whole bunch of sod down, and instead I just reseeded with some tall fescue, and this is kind of what it's turned out to be. And this is a man versus Poa project. And so just to talk about the Poa, I really have not seen any this year, and I don't want to get my expectations too high because I know there's tons of seeds in there. But right now this is exactly what I wanted to happen. And so the middle of my yard right here was completely 100% Poa, and now that is all nice turf type tall fescue. Right now, victory? Question mark? I don't know. I'm still a little bit skeptical. It's almost looking too good to be true. So I may end up overseeding this again with some more fescue, tall fescue in the fall, just to make it even that much more thicker. But compared to what my grass looked like back in March, I'll take it. So thank you guys for watching, if you watched all my videos. If not, go check them out, give me a subscribe, and we'll see you later.